Hey, so I was watching This Week with George Snuffleupagus, and, you know, we've said it on this show a million times that the problem with Medicare isn't Medicare, and that the problem with Medicare is the problem with health care. Our health care in America is twice as expensive as it is in the rest of the world, and that's because it's run privately for profit. People do health care for profit in America. The health corporations, big pharma, health insurance, they've bought our government, and now they have an oligopoly, a monopoly, pretty much, right? They can do whatever they want. And we just have a middleman in the middle of our healthcare system for no reason. That some people say is what drives our costs up by as much as 30%. Okay? So there's this guy named Stephen Brill, who's a conservative, by the way, who wrote, I've got to say, probably the best article on healthcare ever. It's in Time magazine from last week. So here he is, Stephen Brill. He's a conservative. He's not allergic to facts and accurate information. And he wrote that article, and he detailed everything that's wrong with our healthcare system and why we have to pay too much. And, well, here he is on Sunday on this week's George Snuffleupagus, and let's just listen to a little bit.
Medicare, as I point out in the article, is very efficient at most things. It buys healthcare really efficiently, which is a great irony because it's supposed to be, the big government bureaucracy. Where Medicare is not efficient is where Congress, because of lobbyists, have handcuffed Medicare. Medicare can't negotiate what it pays for any kind of drugs. It can't negotiate what it pays for wheelchairs or diabetes or testing equipment. And if Congress took those handcuffs off of Medicare, you could get about half of the spending cuts that we're sitting around here talking about.
Hey, I say thanks. Hey, thanks a lot, Dudley Do-Right, but that's never going to happen. So let's get back to how many people's benefits we can cut, okay? Because that's never going to happen.
Next.
George Snuffleupagus, he doesn't know if what's this guy saying is true or not, apparently because he didn't know this guy was going to come on the show. Apparently he didn't know that guy who wrote this article, who said all this stuff in the article, was going to come on his show, even though it's his show, and say this stuff. So he turns to this guy, Steve Ratner, who's from the White House. He's an American financier who served as the lead auto advisor at the car czar. He was the car czar. He also spent 2 decades as an investment banker at Lehman Brothers, Morgan Stanley.
That's very bad. Very bad.
So your basic 99%er.
Yes. So he's a big, we got to cut Medicare. There's just no other way around it. And here's what he says to what that guy just said.
True. You could get a fair amount. And look, if Medicare were simply able to get the same prices for prescription drugs that Medicaid gets, it would save $120 billion over 10 years.
So he just said that if Medicare was allowed to negotiate like Medicaid is, they would save $120 billion over 10 years. That's a lot of money. Am I wrong about that?
That's a lot of money.
Hang on. So let's hear what else Steve Ratner has to say.
It's actually a little more.
But there's a fundamental point here, Stephen. I thought your piece was great, and I think your points are right, but I also don't want people to be confused.
Yeah. He doesn't want people to be confused. And
by, facts.
And by confused, he means realize that we're about to get screwed over.
I don't want people to be confused. I want them to be wholly ignorant.
Yes. So here he's got a little bit more. Don't be confused.
I don't believe that we can cut our way, change the pricing, do all the things you're talking about, and still save Medicare. The average person who is at Medicare retirement age has paid in something like...
So here's this guy who is now the leading expert on what's wrong with our healthcare system, right? The guy who wrote the article in Time magazine. And here's this guy who's, an equity financer, this guy, Steve, and he's telling him, you're wrong. You're wrong. You don't know what you're talking. We still can't. That's not going to save Medicare. You don't know what you're talking about. That's Steve Ratner. He wants to make sure that the truth doesn't get in the way of any of his BS. Right. So hang on.
But there's a fundamental point here, Stephen. I thought your piece was great, and I think your points are right. But I also don't want people to be confused. I don't believe that we can cut our way, change the pricing, do all the things you're talking about, and still save Medicare. The average person who is at Medicare retirement age has paid in something like $122,000 into the system. They will get back $387,000 of benefits. That's 3 times. You're not going to reduce that $387,000 by hospital cuts and this and that. We have to still have fundamental Medicare reforms to make those numbers.
Yeah. Hey, maybe Medicare has been handcuffed, and maybe that's why it costs so much. But I didn't come on the show to have my goddamn mind changed. I'll tell you that. That's not what I'm doing. I don't care about all your facts that debunk everything I think.
And you know what? We can save a lot of money if we let people die.
Yes. What is his? So we have to cut the health care.
He even said, you're right. Your points are right. But let me just make this point.
but then
screw that. Well, he's saying we pay in one and we get three back.
Yeah.
So what? First
of all,
so what? This is a good thing.
I wonder if you put $1 into a savings account and then when you turn 65, you took it out, would there be more than $3 in there?
Oh.
Does the value of things increase over time?
Oh.
Does the government have the ability to invest money to issue?
Very well put, Ben. I didn't even think about that. Yes.
It's not like you're putting in $1 today and taking out $3 tomorrow.
So they act like people when they go on Medicare who's paid into Medicare their whole life. And when they get sick now and they're a senior citizen, they go, well, they're getting more benefits than they actually paid for. Someone else is paying for that. If we're only paying in a third, if we're getting back 2/3 of what we're paying in, where's those 2/3 coming from?
Well, what they're suggesting is that it's a Ponzi scheme at this point where we're paying for them.
Oh, is that what they're saying?
Yeah, and to a degree it's true, but it's true largely because Congress screwed up.
So here's my problem with this whole section, what just happened, right? So they get this expert on who just wrote the seminal article on healthcare and what's wrong with it in Time magazine. He lays out the big problem. It's the big money lobbyists that have gotten lawmakers to actually pass laws that don't allow Medicare to negotiate for stuff that has to pay for, like drugs, hospital stay, wheelchairs. They can't.
You know what? Excuse me, but wouldn't allowing them to make those negotiations, wouldn't that solve or be a path to solving what the other guy was talking about, which is how you pay in $100,000 and $300,000
right?
Has to,
yes.
So that wouldn't that isn't it common sense to think that would be a way to deal with that?
Unfortunately, there's just no way to know.
There's just no way to know.
There's no such thing as math, and so it just can't be determined.
So here, Frank,
can I just ask one thing? It just kind of sounds like this, and you guys seem very smart, that we should just kill old people.
Yes, kill old people.
Yeah, if you get rid of Medicare and old people just show up at the emergency room, who pays for that?
Nobody.
Well, nobody had to get
people.
old.
We're paying,
If we killed old people, we could save a lot of money and make the world a lot less smelly.
Right?
And we could use all those empty larks and make amusement parks and bumper cars out of them.
Yes.
So Frank, think about that. Think about that for a minute, right? So this guy lays out the problem. He says the problem is that we're paying way more for our health care because of lobbyists have controlled our government, and now Medicare isn't allowed to negotiate. And if they were, for instance, just on pharmaceuticals, it would save $120 billion over 10 years. By the way, the other guy said it would be even more than that, right?
Yes, he did.
And so the point gets made, and what doesn't happen is what was really interesting to me. What didn't happen is that they didn't all start screaming at the top of their lungs about how horrible this is and vowing to make sure this kind of gross crony capitalism that rips off the taxpayers at the expense of corporations has got to stop. Nobody said that. Nobody got upset, not even for a second.
Well, they're pulling the classic right-wing maneuver of if your suggestion doesn't completely solve a problem, you got to throw it out.
Yes.
Like, listen, that would save $120 billion, but we need $130 billion.
So that doesn't work.
So sorry.
Adios.
What else you got?
I know what we have. We have faith.
And by the way, not for nothing, but if Medicare could negotiate, it means prices across the board would go down.
Yes.
It means it would have the same cost control effect that the post office has on shipping.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have to kill old people?
Right. So,
but we could.
What's crazy about that is that nobody even disputed what he said, really. They all said, yeah, that's happening. And they accepted it. And then they quickly got back to the idea that we have to cut healthcare services for the elderly, no matter how much corruption you get rid of, because we just can't afford healthcare for our old people. We just can't do it in America. All right, so there's more. So the fact-based guy, he comes back with some facts. And he seems to blow a mountain-sized hole in the argument of people who want to cut Medicare. And let's listen to it.
Well, if you put Medicare in the context of the larger healthcare system, and this is something that everybody at this table is going to think that I should go to a mental hospital when I get finished saying this, the government and all of us would actually save money if you lowered the age for Medicare.
So he's saying, since Medicare is a more efficient healthcare delivery system, that if we lowered the age of Medicare and let more people on it, we would actually save money as a country. That's what he's saying.
That was the moment that the other guy took out a gun and shot him.
So these are two amazing points this guy just made. Let's hear how it gets.
If the Medicare age were 60 instead of 65, the economy and the taxpayers would actually save money. And George, please don't look at me like that. I'm serious.
You're potentially right, and part of the argument.
You're potentially right. This is what Steve, again, the equity capital guy, says you're potentially right.
But this will never happen.
No, I'm serious. You're potentially right, and part of the argument about raising the Medicare age to 67 is you're taking people out of the Medicare
right,
system.
and you're.
Yes. If you lower the Medicare age to 60, you'd save a ton of money. But, hey, this isn't Europe, so save your breath, okay?
Not going to happen.
So this guy makes a lot of sense, this guy Stephen Brill, if you lower, and I'm going to miss that guy. I'm going to really
when they
miss
kill
that
him.
Yes, they're not going to be here. So if we lowered the Medicare age, we'd save billions, which would only make us lower the age again. And where does that lead us, right? Pretty soon everyone will have reasonably priced health care. Lock that guy up. Lock that guy up. So,
it is funny that he said, you're going to put me in a mental hospital, because the one sensible guy with the facts, nobody accepts that reality. Nobody accepts it.
Yeah, he has to acknowledge that what he's saying is going to seem crazy to everybody.
Yes, very heretical?
Heretical, yes.
Yes.
They would put him in a mental hospital if he had health care.
Sounds like he just wants a handout.
They're going to send him to county.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. So here's a guy saying all this stuff, and no one else is agreeing with him.
It's like silence.
Well, no one has ever said anything remotely like that on a Sunday talk show. I mean, if you just want to hear people every week talking about how we have to cut Medicare, we have to cut Social Security, it's a constant refrain on every Sunday talk show every week, and the only relief from it is when the commercials come and they have nothing but ads for defense contractors, and you never hear them talk about cutting military spending, ever.
Right.
Well, in defense of the network, some of those commercials are in fact for pharmaceuticals.
They're not, a lot of them. They're not all for defense contracts.
If you get rid of if you don't get rid of Medicare, then all the commercials are going to be.
So this guy's already made the point of why our health care is too expensive, because Medicare is not allowed to negotiate, which could be fixed like that, and nobody's screaming about it. Plus, he says, hey, if we just lowered the age for Medicare, we'd help our economy and save everybody a bundle of money. They keep ignoring him. You got something to say?
Yeah, this parallels the gun industry, the arms industry, lobbying Congress so that Congress cannot spend money keeping track on how many gun deaths there are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they did that. They did pass a law saying you couldn't track that.
So,
and the ATF couldn't give the info to anybody and stuff like that. Yes, this is exactly like. So he tries to push back more, this smart guy with the facts.
Argument about raising the Medicare age to 67 is you're taking people out of the Medicare system.
Right, and what you'd be doing is you'd be putting the most efficient player, which is Medicare. Medicare spends, 80 or 90 cents to process a claim, and the health insurance companies spend $18 or $20 or $25 to process a claim. The health insurance companies.
Well, that's pretty stunning. That statistic.
Yeah, it is. But a couple of cents versus $18. Do we know which is more or less? I mean,
could you imagine if it was reversed? Could you imagine if private health care insurance companies charged 80 cents to process a claim and Medicare charged $18? Imagine if it was the reversed. Well,
you don't have to imagine that, because the way it's portrayed in the media, that is the reverse.
That is how it's portrayed.
Every article you read in every paper on every TV show, it's that Medicare is crazy, out of control costs, and if only we could just let private people take care of it, all of our health costs would come down.
If you lowered the age, you would put more people into the bucket of much more efficient health care. And the worst part about it is that the reforms that we have now with the president's plan are actually going to raise the cost, because all the people who are 60 or 62 or 63 who can't afford the premiums that they're going to have now are going to be subsidized by the taxpayers.
Well, that becomes an argument.
So he's saying that the people who are 62, 63, 60, who can't afford the private health insurance, they're going to get subsidized by the government anyway. So why not put everybody on Medicare, and it's going to save everybody money? It sounds obvious that this is the right thing to do, and that should be the end of the discussion, right? And we should all start working on a plan to expand Medicare for everybody. It's obvious that that's what we need to do. Uh-oh, wait a minute. That's not what's going to happen.
That is one argument. Here's an argument against that different kind of reform.
So it's George Will. So get your buckets to fill full of BS, ladies and gentlemen. That's not fact-based. It's just coming from his gut. He's very much like George W. And here we go.
All the big numbers, billions and trillions, 12 cents is the most important number. 12 cents is the portion of every health care dollar paid by the person receiving the health care.
Okay, that's a completely made-up number. That's not true.
Someone else is paying the rest. It was 47.
I like how he says someone else is paying the rest.
What about all the people that pay out of pocket? They don't pay 12 cents. They pay $1 for every dollar.
It's not, but that's not a true stat.
No, somebody else is paying the rest of that dollar.
That's not a true stat, Steve. He's making that up. It's incorrect. As usual, George Will has his own set of numbers that don't correlate with reality.
They fit into his own reality.
Right.
When Jack Kennedy was president. Now, let me ask the five of you a question.
Okay, so here comes the big question. Ready?
You go to the doctor and he or she says, I want to give you the following test. How many of you five say, how much is that going to cost?
Say, give me two.
Yes, that's the problem with health care and health insurance is that the people who are getting the health care never have to worry about how much it costs. That's except for the 50 million people who don't have health care attached to their jobs or don't have jobs or got laid off and lost their health care. Other than that, we're spoiled rotten in America.
Oh, and what about the insurance company who won't approve it and make you go round and round for a test that your doctor told you that you need?
So here is George Will, Robert, saying that the problem, he's identified the culprit. Even though this guy just pointed out what the real problem is with our healthcare system, George Will has pointed out that the culprit is the sick person in the emergency room who won't do any comparison shopping after his appendix bursts in the middle of a gallbladder attack. Yeah, after that, he probably smacked his head on the windshield. That's when he's supposed to start doing some comparison shopping for CAT scans.
Go on Yelp.
Yeah, why don't you?
Well, you know what? I have to. After hearing George Will, I'm sorry, I have to go check and see if my insurance covers projectile vomiting.
So George Will is saying, he's pretending that the problem is that we have insurance pay our bills. That's the problem. Because we have insurance. That's the problem. And so we don't care about the costs and we don't shop around. And so the price for healthcare is higher because we have insurance. That's George Will's big theory.
We don't have to pay any deductible, nothing like that. It's all just totally it's zero.
His remedy for our twice as expensive as the rest of the world healthcare system is for sick people to stop shopping around for treatment once they become sick. This is George Will's brilliant idea. And somewhere, like as if somewhere out there, there's a hospital that charges reasonable rates. Yeah. Just not the one near your house.
But that's, what Will is saying though, that's very very Paul Ryan-esque, right?
Yes.
And wasn't that that in the campaign was what they were saying is that we want to give, you don't want Medicare or Medicaid because we're going to give you a chance to shop, when you're incredibly sick.
Yes.
And old.
To go out and shop around for a really good bargain in healthcare. And you're much going to prefer that, especially when you're desperately ill.
Hey, I'm dizzy and I'm blacking out and I'm not getting enough blood to my brain. You know what I'll do when I'm dizzy is I'll shop around for cheap CAT scans. That's what I'll do while I'm passing out.
I'm no fool. I want a good price.
That's right. I'm not an idiot.
I just, when I get really sick, I love bargain hunting. What can I the joy of it.
Yes.
I love clipping coupons and going to the CAT scan and getting the best deal I can.
I always go on Craigslist for my leprosy needs.